Welcome everybody to At the Forefront. We're delighted today to be joined by the founder and director of Thinking Black, who is Hope Oloye. Sorry, Hope, I didn't check with you. Is that the right pronunciation? Yes, anyway. Oh, I'm very pleased with myself there. Thinking Black, she founded in 2017, and they're helping students in the UK build skills and confidence in order to be able to chart a much more successful or to chart the best path to success possible. And the organisation was based on Hope's experience of being one of the only Black British students in her college when she was at Oxford University. But Thinking Black deliver workshops that are both practical and culturally relevant and support young British Black voices with the skills that they need to realise their potential and take their first steps into university and the working world. The impact that Hope is having already is really impressive. She's worked with over 2,000 young people and has one cohort that has been particularly successful, with every single student being offered a place in a Russell Group university. So she knows what she is doing really works. So Hope, it's really lovely to have you here with us today. Thank you so much. I'd love you to share a little bit more about what inspired you to set up the organisation and, how the experiences that you had at university really impacted you and why you wanted to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. I was so glowing. But yeah, I guess part of the inspiration for Thinking Black was the fact that not only were Black students really underrepresented while I was there at Oxford, we weren't really represented across a range of subjects. So the Black students who were there, and when you look at the application data, they were applying more to vocational courses, and were underrepresented across like a wide range of different subjects. So we were like, okay, how can we introduce different subjects to students, subjects that are not being covered in their schools, or that are not feeling like personal or exciting, and also like introduce students to the different pathways that they can take to get to where they're going and like have a bit more fun along the way. And then also the fact that,
I just clarify, when you say vocational courses, probably a really stupid question, but by that do you mean stuff like medicine and law?
Exactly, engineering,
English and
classics, music, art, history. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, that was a huge thing. And yeah, that's something that was really represented in the application data. And then also when you looked at like the cohorts as well, because I did biomed, but in the end it was neuroscience, and I was the only Black student on my course across the whole university, I think even across all 3 years. So
wow.
which was wild. And I think a lot of that is a lack of information that students have when they're doing their A-levels, either from their family or their schools, and they're not pursuing things that they're passionate about because they don't know about the wide range of different jobs and career paths that are available to them. They just want like security, and you know what I mean? So I think a part of Thinking Black was like, how can we make education exciting, personal, and like introduce students to ways of solving social issues through like learning and writing and researching.
And so what was how did you feel like it negatively impacted your university experience?
Yeah, I think it was a shame. I didn't have any Black professors or even I think I had one female professor. And hardly no Black
hasn't really reached some parts of the UK yet.
Yeah, it's such a shame. And it definitely at that like upper level of universities where Black people are not they're perhaps not staying on past PhD or even for the PhD, or not getting the jobs and the promotions. And I think there's so many different issues with that. But I think it can be quite discouraging if you never see a researcher who looks like you. I think often people don't know it's a pathway that's available to them. And I think also it can make it, like, the lack of belonging was a huge thing, where lots of students knew each other from their schools and had like a huge network going in, but the state school students, we were like the one kid from each of our schools, and we were spread across and kind of just floundering, figuring it all out. So I think that was also a part of
makes everything harder, basically.
Exactly.
So what does Thinking Black do, and how are you addressing these challenges?
Yeah, so we do we run a range of educational programs that are both like plugged into society. So we start with social issues and then we'll have lectures, workshops, seminars, and students will produce a piece that addresses an issue. And we have writing, like essay writing, and then also creative writing, and soon a public speaking program coming up soon. The goal is to, yeah, introduce students to different subjects, make it more personal and exciting, and also to kind of upskill young people so that they are more confident in expressing themselves. And when they get into these institutions, they're confident in saying their opinion. They're used to it. They're used to working through things out loud, and that helps with interview skills for uni and further on. Yeah, so that's kind of some of what we're trying to do.
And so you're working with people just both before university and during university. So how does that work?
Yeah, so mostly we work with students before uni.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we work with students from around 14 to 18.
Yeah.
And then we do some alumni events afterwards as well. And that's something we'd love to grow out later
Yeah.
on as well. Yeah.
And in terms of what the biggest challenges are, do you think that are facing young Black students in the UK right now? What do you think they are, and what are the particular bits that you're bringing in to address those? So, in terms of recently the attainment gap has been shown to be increasing, and employability post-university, which is horrifying, is it's worsening alongside exclusion. Like how is the organization trying to challenge these horrible,
Yeah.
those facts are awful.
Yeah, so it's a real shame because the talent and skill is there. So with the attainment, a lot of our programs, whilst we have like interesting content, a lot of it is, okay, this is how you structure an essay. This is the way that kind of like simulating a seminar and discussions and things like that you'd have at university level and also during tutorials. I think that's a big part of what we do, like providing students with skills and also the confidence so that they're able to translate the knowledge that they have into really high performing exam responses. I think a lot of the time students get extra marks for like originality and things like that, both at uni level and also A level too and GCSE. And often in state schools, when there's really big class sizes or there's behavioral issues, students are they're more like memorizing and regurgitating as opposed to having the space to like chew through things and like filter them through their own personal lens and then come up with original thoughts and ideas. And we know that they have those thoughts and ideas. It's perhaps they've not been given the space to nurture them or not been told that those thoughts and opinions are interesting. So that's another part of what we do to try and kind of raise the attainment gap, give that. And then also we have mentorship. So we'll have students who are sometimes undergrads, recent graduates and postgraduate students who have studied aligned subjects, provide mentorship across the length of our programs. So students have check-ins and one-to-ones where they can talk about the work they're doing on our program, but then also their plans, their future goals, different university pathways, different routes to employability, different programs that they can apply to whilst they're even at A level that kind of help get them in the trajectory of being employed post-university that otherwise they're not really getting access to in their own communities.
Yeah. And do you want to give us a couple of your favourite examples? Obviously, you can change names, but of how young people that you have met at age 14 and who are now flourishing in a way they might well not have done if they hadn't been for the interventions that they were able to access.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few students, think of three students who they did ACT quite a few years ago, all went on to Oxford, and then they all helped each other with their applications with university as well. And then one student in particular went on to do a master's in education at Harvard and then sent through their personal statement, which was all talking about how like being a student at Thinking Black, and then they came back to do mentorship and curriculum design for Thinking Black, helped kind of shape their thoughts around education, and then has gone on to sit on committees, like governmental committees, do research, conference presentations, start different organizations as well. So that's one particular student that really has become like an education champion. And that's, yeah, really amazing. And we also have other students who go on to start organizations whilst they're at university, that have gone to Oxbridge, but also other Russell Group universities. Other students who have pursued writing as well, which has been really cool. So they're like, okay, I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a cartoonist, and I'm drafting this cartoon book and stuff. And then we set them up with literary agents as well within our network. So yeah, I think it's great because we have students who really pursue the like academic thing, but also retain a lot of the creativity, and like that kind of practice, either just for themselves or out for the world as well.
And so it sounds like you've got amazing networks. How have you built those networks? And do you find it easy to kind of recruit? I would imagine you don't find it that hard because you're clearly such a engaging and inspiring individual. But how do you do that? And for example, we've got 25 people here today. You know, what are you looking for?
Yeah, what to connect with in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. What might people be able to introduce you to? You never know. You like use every opportunity.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, no, I love networking. I think it definitely sometimes I feel a bit shy because it's like, oh, pitch, but I think approaching it more as like a potential connections and ways that we can all kind of work together and strengthen each other's organization is kind of something that helps. But yeah, I think going forward, we're really looking to continue to introduce students to different industries. So strengthen out the like post 18 segment of our work. So we have some more alumni events, which is really cool. And also we get talks from people who work in different companies, or different industries, or have studied different courses. So having more people that kind of are from different backgrounds, really, just to talk and to meet with students would be really, really cool.
Are there any particular, just it's also, you know, we've got reasonably strong networks in certain areas. Are there any particular areas that you're looking for, that you're thinking, yeah, it would be really great to meet somebody who works in, you know, I don't know, nuclear energy or finance institution?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think, some
or
like STEM
media
subjects.
or
Yeah, exactly. Writing is a huge thing. Public people who work in publishing, and the media, definitely. We have lots of kids who come through who want to get into presenting, and one actually ended up doing radio work. But yeah, kind of media stuff is really cool, as well as STEM, engineering. Lots of students are interested in like climate stuff. So people who work in renewables. But honestly, we get students, because our program is so interdisciplinary, we have students who are interested in all sorts, like everything. AI. So yeah.
Well, if we come across anyone, we would definitely, there's one person I'm already thinking, well,
amazing.
There's 2 people now we need to introduce you to. But from what are your thoughts on, you know, the universities at the moment are, you know, they've recently hosted a summit on race equality in higher education. You know, they are, I mean, there has been a huge push to change things recently. Is it working? What's your perspective on the action that's being taken, and how much difference it's making, and what more they could do or should do?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some progress. So universities like Oxford, for example, are more diverse than when I went there a few years ago. And there is more diversity in the range of subjects that students are applying to. So that is good. There is still an attainment gap. And then again, specifically for like Caribbean students, I think, and also Black boys. So I think some more targeted intervention would be great. Of course, part of it is like resources, a space where students can work is another thing that could be helpful. But I think that, and then also I think some emphasis on the university levels, when students get to their institutions, what are their experiences like when they're there, as opposed to just having, okay, the cohort is representative of the number of Black students in the UK, what are their experiences, like how happy are they, how likely are they to drop out or take a year out or to interrupt, and also what's the employability like at the end, and what can we do in the middle to support them in that journey. Sometimes there is like a culture shift that needs to happen at these institutions and the universities more widely, that trainings like implicit bias training is a great start. I think it needs to be a bit more long-term and integrated into different subjects. And also curriculum reform is something that could definitely be done. So just making sure that parts of different subjects are all representative of the students that study there as well, I think would be a great start too.
Are you seeing these things happening? Is there a drive for this? And you know, in the last 18 months, has it stalled a bit? I hope the answer is no, but I'm guessing the answer is looking like it's yes.
Yeah. I mean, there is still effort. I think people are doing. There's definitely effort to drive Black students to different universities. That's something that I've noticed, and different departments will reach out looking for help, or universities. I don't see as much on the experiences of Black students when they're there, and also just engaging with Black students as well while they're there. So I think more could be done there. I've heard from other people in the education space that there's been like a drop off in funding, energy, enthusiasm for DEI type projects. Personally, universities are still quite interested, which is good. But some corporate partners I have seen have been like kind of reframing their programs that were targeted to Black students to just or removing the words diversity and equality, often because maybe they have a US office. And I think that is a real shame. So it is something that is kind of rippling through. And I have noticed other charities kind of shutting down in this space, which means that I think there's a bit of a blow in terms of the students needing resources, where they may have gone to different organizations. They're kind of like, there are fewer to choose from, which means that the number of students the ratio of students that were able to accept applications is there's more of a disparity, which is a shame. But also, I guess that's just growth. But yeah, no, that was a long answer.
So in terms of your funding model, how are you running your business, basically charity business? But, you know, is it what percentage through corporate partnerships? How does it work, basically?
Yeah, so currently the majority of actually of recent, I think it's around 65% is university partnerships. So we get grants from uni. For example, Oxford was the main one, not my college to begin with. And then other colleges kind of also fund us, and UCL. And then we have the four and other like national grant bodies. We don't have any corporate sponsorships really. I think we have like a publishers who sends us some free books and a little prize money. But we're not really dependent on corporate things.
So your partnerships with them are more around channeling a pipeline of talent into their organization rather than maybe they should be paying for that, but you know.
You're right.
In the business world.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, it's definitely something we're looking to explore. Yeah.
I know how hard it is though to set up corporate partnerships. So it's not easy. But it's great that the universities are still really prioritizing this. And the naming of the programs might be different, but hopefully the intention is still the same thing. Yeah, exactly. And as an organization, what are your greatest challenges at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's a new question. I mean, one is money. I guess that's always the case with charities. I think we've done a lot. We've worked with loads of students on like tiny budgets, and we do lots of like intense interventions. So students get a lot of face time. They get some of them up to like 20 hours of lectures and seminars on our programs. And we do that with a part-time team. And all of our facilitators are also part-time. So they're either students or they are lawyers, authors, that they have jobs. So I think that is difficult, just kind of stretching everybody's time and the resources. I think also maybe like the trade-offs with different types of growth. So we have started to, with some of our programs, we've split them so that they're different tracks. So students that are high need get lots of the intervention and FaceTime, and then students who are kind of, maybe they don't have as great of a need in terms of adversity, or they have better support at school, or they're on other programs, just get access to webinars and things like that. And that has allowed us to have 700 students on one program and then 30 receiving really targeted support. But I think knowing kind of how we want to grow in that way, and then also being comfortable with the fact that there are lots of students who we offer a little and then a few that we offer a lot, and there's just no, and just kind of figuring out that type of like our growth and the structure. And also it's so hard to give students rejection letters and stuff like that.
So how many applicants for your programs do you get, and how many are you able to take at the moment?
Yeah, so one of our recent programs, we got 1,000 applicants, 1,001 for a program that was initially meant to be 30 places. So that's why we were like, okay, how do we give something to students? And that's when we had 700 who were able to join the webinars and still get something. But then the selection process is wild, and I'm like, okay, I might have to, I'm gonna have to sit with some tech and figure out a way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact that you have so much demand is a fantastic kind of reflection of the ambition and the drive that is out there. You know, when there's so much negative media coverage around young people, and you know, they have ambition and all of that sort of things, which is clearly not true. And your data absolutely bears that out. Do you, as an organization, are you like, how easy is it for you to kind of think about your scaling plans, or are there kind of shifting sands around funding and around demand? Does it mean that you're constantly having to pivot, or is it really, have you got a kind of clear vision of like, this is where we want to be in 2 years, and where is that?
Yeah, I think we have been pivoting a little bit. I think one is, as we've grown on social media a little bit and like reach more students, and we're like, okay, we want to be able to offer as much as we can to students, but we also don't want to sacrifice the quality of our offering. So that's something that we're trying to navigate now. At the same time, it has been a great time because we've got a bit more funding for newer programs as well, which is great. So we used to run a single program a year, and I think now it is it's going to be 4 programs a year with the same team. So yeah, I think in 2 years, like I mean, it's really fun. But yeah, I think we hope to we have so many ideas for programs, which is amazing. And I think we're at the stage now where we're like, okay, let's pick the thing we want to do for a bit. Let's get really comfortable in doing it and get as much funding as we can and do that super well, before we just like growing lots of different directions, if that makes sense.
How do people find out about you, and are they coming from all across the country?
Yeah, so the majority of our programs are online except from 2, one and then a new one that's coming. So that means that, the vast majority of our students come from all over the country. And we do have something like 50% London and then 50% everywhere else. I think that is somewhat reflective of the fact that London does have a larger proportion of Black British people. But we really want to widen our relationship with schools out of London, and we've been fostering some links with Manchester in particular, trying to kind of drive that growth, because we did notice a disparity in when you speak to students from maybe Sheffield versus London. The students from London are like, oh, I'm going to go to this lecture, and I'm going to go to this insight at this bank, and I'm going to go to this thing at this lab. And the students, I remember one student in Sheffield would be like, Miss, where are they hearing about all of this? Because it was just, there wasn't as much on offer. So we're trying to kind of like plug that gap and offer more support to students in the north of the UK. And if that means like paying for their travel to come to do some of the insight things that are in offer in London, but also just fostering better links with companies and unis in the north of the UK, so that we can kind of point them to places in their own neighborhoods that they can get some more support from.
How much do you think this is a kind of something I find fascinating at the moment, the education system is actually hampering a lot of what young people need in order to be able to achieve, and that there's so much pressure on specific academic attainment rather than kind of broader personal and a kind of, you know, mental well-being and personal growth. And, you know, there's so little funding for art subjects, for sport, for all of the sort of wraparound things that feed the soul, as opposed to making you a calculator.
Yes, absolutely. It's something we've noticed for sure. And it is definitely a shame that, yeah, you see sort of students in some schools have loads of extracurricular activities and others don't have as many, which is a shame. And also with our intake forms, we look at like mental health and stuff, and we see that students are quite stressed to begin with,
Yeah.
and it's kind of sad because they're quite young and they're worried about the future. They're worried about their grades. Lots of the students in our programs have care and responsibilities or have had really difficult backgrounds, and then on top of that, they have all of this focus on academic performance. It is a shame, but yeah, it is definitely a shame, and it's something we're trying to kind of intervene in. So we have some trips where we take students to the theatre, we take students to exhibitions, and we have sessions where we'll kind of break down different routes to different careers and things like that to try and get a bit more of that holistic thing. And we always try and like reduce the pressure because the students, like you said, are super ambitious and they're thinking so far ahead. They're like, okay, if I go to this uni and do this course, this is the job and this is my 5-year plan and this is how I'm going to like help my whole family. And we're like, okay, yes, but also like, are you sleeping? Are you drinking water? Are you going for walks? So we always have like
Are you having
managing
fun?
stress. Yes, are you
Yeah.
exactly, yes. And we try and integrate some fun. Like we have a shared playlist and we always listen to music at the start of each session, and also have all of these managing stress type things, and try and create a community that they can lean on each other as well.
Yeah, is that a sort of, I mean, in some ways, is that one of the really most valuable things about the organisation and what you're doing is that you are introducing and making sure your students have friends in other places who are thinking like them, are as ambitious as they are, can share the stresses and the joys and the challenges. You know, how much do you think the cohort adds value as
Yeah,
well
absolutely.
as content?
Yeah, I think it's huge value because after at a certain point they're not comfortable talking to us about things anymore, and that's okay, but they have each other, which is really nice. So we have the like program that they're on, but then often they work in smaller groups as well, and we always have like smaller group reflections, where it's just the students to try and get them to kind of lean on each other. And we do see that they say, oh, I went to LSE and I didn't know anyone from my school, but someone from Thinking Black was there. So that's really nice that instead of them kind of going and being a fish out of water, like they have a network to tap into. And yeah, so yeah, I think it is a huge part of what we do. And it's something that's so nice and comforting to see, especially when you have students who are really passionate about tiny niche things and there's no one at school to talk about it with, and then they find somebody
Environmental
else.
economics really gets me going.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what the applications are like. Yeah, honestly. Which is great. Like on the intro call for our creative writing program, the students are like 15 and they were all sharing the books they read. And I'm like, wow, I read this when I was at uni. Like it's amazing that they're reading it now and they're like, oh, have you read this? Have you read this? Oh, add me on Snapchat and I'll send you this book and I'll send you that book. And they're super like, you can tell they're really like excited to have people to share those things with. So that is really nice. Yeah.
People, there's nothing better than finding your tribe of people who love the
Exactly.
same things that you do.
Yes.
We've had a really great question from Patricia. Patricia, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Asking about, do you see opportunity in the government's new 500 million social outcomes fund for children and young people? Yeah. Do you think you might be able to get support? I don't know that much about the fund.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about the fund, so thanks for letting me know. But that does sound really good and well aligned for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see what their like the goal outcomes that they're trying to target are.
I think as far as I was reading a little bit about it, but I think as yet they haven't decided how it's going to be distributed. So yes, it will be possibly through the sorts of partners that they often work with, like lottery or something like that. But let's hope not. That who knows. It would be good if the pathway. Do you know the Pathway Fund? That's very they're great. Maybe they'll get some opportunity. And in terms of you and running the organisation, you set it up in 2017 when you were still a student. Am I right in thinking?
Yes.
How? Because I mean, have you it's your full-time job now. Am I right in thinking? Was it your full-time job when you first left university? And like, how do you keep yourself going? Because there's massive pressure, and the stress of raising funding is huge and particularly at the moment, it's so difficult to raise support. How do you look after yourself?
Yeah. How do I look after myself? I think it is a tough one for sure. I think especially when things are very like you have a personal connection to your work, which I'm sure so many like charity leaders in the room do have, and it's like yeah. So yeah, it is definitely really tough. I think having a good team has been helpful. A team who will be like, Hope, log off. You said you're on annual leave, log off. I think that helps a lot, just to keep things accountable, and that's nice. And building that trust, so you know that okay, if I'm not there, there's other people that kind of make sure things are okay. And just trying to find things that kind of help me de-stress and stick to them. So yeah, I think that's helped me.
Yeah, how big is your team now?
It's pretty small. I think there's 6 of us on the core team, but then we have like around 12 to 15 seasonal staff. Yeah, 15 actually, 20 now. Seasonal staff that like come and go for different
That's
parts
not
and
that small.
programs.
That's not that small.
I guess so. I suppose not. Yeah, lots of emails, but
No, it's really funny that you say that about the annual leave thing, because it's one of the conversations that we have with everyone. And yeah, we'll have at some point with you is, do you take your holiday and do you switch your emails off when you're on holiday? Because it is so difficult when you're running a charity or a social enterprise, but it is so vital because, it's the oxygen mask thing. If you're not okay, the whole organization is not going to be okay. So you have to look after yourself. It's really vital. As a funder, we're really into that whole looking after yourself and well-being thing, because burnout rate at the moment in the sector, as you all know, I'm sure is horribly high. I know that you're really good on social media as an organization, and it's something that some organizations are really good at and some find it a lot harder. Have you got any tips on how you use social media to promote your programs? The fact that you get 1,000 applications for your last program. Now, what are you doing, or are there simple things that you do and tweaks that you can make that you can share with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so particularly TikTok. So we kind of we've had a few heavy hitters on that platform, and then so I guess some of the things that have worked for us is be direct to camera videos that are short and informative, and then also always having like a call to action or some sort of offering, I think works really, really well. So yeah, those are kind of tips that helped us. And then also maybe like viral sounds is great. But I think really like niching in and figuring out, okay, what is the goal for this? So for us, it's a lot easier for us when we're having, I think the posts that do really well for us are calls to apply, and then also roundups of things that have happened. So, I think that's because students want to go to uni, or they want to develop their personal statement, or what they're trying to get out of the program. I think figuring out how things reach them and what you want the action to be at the end is really important with socials. And sometimes the videos that do well are not the ones that have all the things that we think are important. They're more the things that feature the things students particularly would want. But yeah, I think call to actions, direct to camera, and as short as you can, snappy, is great, and the link in bio. Yeah.
We're noting all of these down ourselves, by the way. Are there any other questions that anyone wants to ask? Because we've had a couple in the chat, but I've asked them, but please do feel free to jump in if anyone would like to give Hope any particular questions or insights or share anything with her. But otherwise I will keep going because I've got loads of questions to ask. As an organization, like, what do you think is something that we should just sort of more generally as a society how can we keep thinking about what you're doing and what needs to be done and make a difference with helping your mission?
Yeah. Oh, I would say a thing that is super easy is to like keep talking about race and reading about race. I think often people are really scared to have conversations about race or to think about how what their part is in perpetuating inequality. Like lots of people mean really, really well. Um, but I think, yeah, having those conversations is super important. I was saying earlier too about how we started doing training in schools as well. Um, and we led like a workshop, one in particular in Manchester, and most of the teachers were white, and we were reading bell hooks and things like that. And one of the responses we got in that workshop was a teacher kind of reflecting on the way that students in his classroom interact with him and the way he'd sort of been interpreting their behavior as like not engaged, not switched on. And he was sort of reflecting on perhaps the power dynamic in the classroom and the ways of relating and the types of content that he teaches, and his own role in everything. And I think having those conversations and spaces and then interrogating your own thoughts and behaviors and just being really gentle and forgiving with ourselves, because everyone gets things wrong, and it's just more about learning and improving and having conversations from like an open
Yeah.
space as opposed to kind of being defensive or nervous, about these conversations.
Yeah, I think that's so true. People are very nervous about bringing up the subject because they're worried they're going to say something wrong. But when I've read things about it and kind of investigated, everybody, the advice is always like, bring it up. People don't mind if you use slightly wrong languages because the intention is to try and like flesh things out and talk about and bring things out into the open. Have you, with that sort of thing in mind, have you got any recommendations of books or things people could watch or anything to help kind of strengthen their conversations about race and ethnicity muscles, as it were, to
Yeah.
help people feel more confident?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one that is really, really good is Akala's book. I forget the name, but he has a book. I'll just double check it. And oh yeah, Natives, Race and Class. It's incredible. And he also has an audiobook that you can listen to that he reads, and he's a performance poet too. And it's kind of part biographical, and kind of walks through race in the UK and touches on education. It's a really nice introduction that is like engaging and easy to follow. I think that's brilliant. And then another kind of a great more education tool that I love is Bell Hooks's Teaching to Transgress. It's great, and it is unbelievable how relevant the things she said then are still to today, and also in our British context too. That's
Yeah.
something I love. But yeah, I think those are. Oh, and then also BBC iPlayer, the Steve McQueen series, that was amazing. And there's stuff on education and things in general. I'm just going to find the name. Oh, Small Axe. Yeah.
We will, Rob, you're looking like you're noting these down, brilliant. Because we'll share them in the chat as well. But Marie Claire has asked a question saying she works in the environmental sector and is looking at ways to help diversify the urban forestry industry. They're currently creating a school collective within London Urban Forest Partnership, and it would be really helpful to find out best ways to take next steps to increase accessibility. Any tips? Welcome.
Oh yeah, that sounds really, really cool. Good luck with the collective. That sounds really cool. Yeah, I think things that help. So having webinars is great. Reaching out. I always think, obviously, well, I guess of course I do, but I was going to say like working with younger people is amazing because it helps to shape the decisions they make really early on. Um, and yeah, so I would say like partnering like you're doing with the schools, having the webinars is great, having insight days. I think students love to just physically go to places is something I've noticed. Trips is something that they're always down to sign up for, even when they didn't think they were interested in the subject. Lots of students will be like, I want to be a lawyer, but I really want to come to this AI insight day because it seems cool. And then they leave and they're like, oh, what are the ways I can combine law with AI? So I think having those insight trips is something that's great. And then posting about them on social media, like a summary of all the things you did, is then a great way to like push it so that people then come to the webinar and things like that. It's a nice like cycle of things.
I'm gonna, sorry, Thanks, Hope. That was brilliant, Marie. I hope that helped answer your question. Kind of going back to the question before on the examples that you were giving on like materials that people can use to help them, is race is obviously a massive issue, but also there's the issue around class and ability. How, I mean, what do you, I'd love you to just kind of talk a bit about the interaction between the two and how sometimes, I mean, yeah, sometimes I think it's really helpful to have a distinction between them and sometimes it's not. I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think, and there's again, yeah. So yeah, the distinctions and intersections between race and class are really interesting. And I know in the UK there's kind of like a thought about them being sort of separate. Um, I think one school of thought is to kind of think about race as as like operating really within class. So the majority, often the Black community in the UK is trapped within lower socioeconomic groups, partially because, well, because of so many different factors, systemic inequalities, reduced likelihood to get promotions, jobs, or increased like visibility at work, which means that sometimes people are in unfair disciplinary procedures, and then the attainment gap, all of it kind of plays into it. So there is like a school of thought that like race kind of acts as a class signifier. So instead of it being something that is really different to class, it's sort of an assumption, or yeah, it's lots of Black people are pushed into working class groups and then all assumed to be in working class groups, and then it's a lot harder to get sustainable social mobility because of generational inequality and things like that as well. So I would really think of them as like integrated factors, and if people have really good understandings of class, I would just extend that to what happens often in the Black community. But I think there's, yeah, some really interesting writing on that is Akala's Race and Class, the Natives book, and then also Minority Rules by Ash Sarkar. She kind of talks about that and how the trying to drive a distinction of like white working class sometimes works to fractionalize that community, when really we could all be working together and we have similar issues. Of course, they have different flavors and different like specificities, but having like a collaboration or a coalition across different working class groups, as opposed to really trying to like fragment out the white working class and assuming that minority groups are part of it.
Pitching them against each other. Because
exactly.
I'm sad, but I'm not wholly surprised what you're saying about the number of boys, the number of young Black boys that are achieving, and the attainment gap is widening. Similarly, young white boys, there are achievement, girls are doing in so many issues, but that doesn't mean that they're all totally fine and they don't need help. But girls are doing amazingly well in a lot of circumstances. But how we can make sure that it doesn't kind of get added in as fuel to the fire. It's more, or the kind of culture wars and all of that sort of stuff, but it's more seen about how can we help people together, but also give each different group what they need.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Rob's just put the reading list, everybody, into in case it's helpful for you. But I hope before we finish, because we're supposed to finish at 1:45, but is there anything else that you'd like to sort of highlight as a kind of call to action, and any shout out for any particular support that you might need, or any awareness that you'd like to raise of any issues?
Awareness of issues. I think maybe thinking about, I don't want to end on a bleak note, oops, but the rise of the right, which is literally the worst note ever to end on. But yeah, I think the rise of the far right, and thinking about how kind of there's some maybe change in attitudes happening on a certain level. I think thinking about that, and also I'm super aware of the fact that often people are scared to have conversations about race with Black people, and also lots of the time Black people don't want to be the person who has to educate people on race. They just want to exist. So I think that being like really active allies is such a powerful tool. And being comfortable, like doing some reading, doing things that are enjoyable, or thinking about how race operates within your own like axis or your own industry or your own charity space, and then having those conversations with people, I think is really, really important, because the candor that white people have with each other about race is different to what the ones that they will have with Black people, and the same with Black people with other Black people. And there's all this psychology, that research that I did a while ago in but yeah, I think that's super important, just kind of empowering yourself to have those conversations with other white people in a casual way, like casually calling people in is what people say now, I think would be really great. And yeah, just thinking about the like more insidious ways that some of the conversations happening now impact young people and communities of color in particular.
I think it's a serious way to end, but it's an incredibly important way to end. Thank you. That's really good. And yeah, I think we'll also, when we publicize this on LinkedIn, Rob, let's circulate the reading list at the same time, because
nice,
that's really helpful. And that's a really nice way, I think, for people to be able to, I like that phrase, I hadn't heard that before, call in as saying, oh, I just read this amazing book, or I listened to this amazing series on podcast with Steve McQueen, in a way, is a very unconfrontational way of encouraging people to think about these issues. Yeah, no, I love that. That's fantastic. Hope, thank you so much indeed. It's really lovely to meet you. If you have got time to stay on for a few minutes afterwards, I've got a couple of people I'd love to talk to you about who I think might be useful for you to talk to. Everyone for listening, thank you very much. Please join us again for our next At the Forefront. And yeah, it's lovely to have you all here, and thanks for your questions and lovely comments in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Right.